Hey, it is 12 noon on Friday, which means it's time for this week's episode of State of Real Estate. I'm John Christman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time, we come to you live to mastermind to grow your real estate business. And what we're talking about today, it's kind of a follow-up to what we talked about on Wednesday. Wednesday, we were talking about how to lead generate, how to get these leads. But now the question is, okay, if we've got a lead, how do we convert them? And it's pretty easy when they're ready to buy right now, right this minute, or ready to sell right now, right this minute. They're the low-hanging fruit, and that's ultimately what we're searching for, because that means money today, or maybe at least in the next couple days, in the next month or so. But then what about the people that we interact with on a daily basis, that we meet, that they're thinking about buying a home, or they're thinking about selling their home? How do we foster a strong relationship with them? And you know, there's a lot of ways we could build relationships, but as we start to build more relationships, how do we make this systematized and almost to a certain extent automate some of this so we could really have a large pipeline of people waiting to do business with us? Because when we've got a pipeline of people waiting to do business with us, it takes the stress off of us, it takes the stress off of our transactions, and it takes the stress off of our business. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, really focusing on the lead conversion side of this. We'll talk quickly about, some of this low-hanging fruit conversion, but then I also want to focus mostly on this long-term conversion when you've got people that are looking 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, maybe somebody that just moved into a property. Maybe you're door knocking and the people really like you and they say, we wish we had used you because you seem like you have way more knowledge than the person we use, but we just moved in and we love the place. They're probably not going to move, according to the National Association of Realtor average, for 5 to 7 years. So how do we now build that strong relationship so 5 to 7 years from now we're thanking our 5 to 7 year past self for building that relationship? So that's what we're covering today. Really excited to bring the show to you. I'm John Christman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. You're watching State of Real Estate.
You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. I'm John Christman. The show is brought to you, of course, by the Tampa School of Real Estate, the one, the only. Check out tampaschool.com for the full information about starting your real estate career, completing post-licensing, continuing education, or whatever it is that we can help you with. That website, again, is tampaschool.com. But let's get into the topic of today's discussion. I got a comment coming in on Facebook from Logan. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything like that, put that in the chat. I've got both of the chats loaded up over here, so you could definitely ask me these questions. Would love to help kind of clear some of this stuff up for you. So Logan's asking, how do I get more leads? So, and I'm glad you asked that question. How do you get more leads? And a couple things. So one, I definitely want to advise you, if you haven't yet already, maybe you're just tuning into this and you didn't see our Ask the Instructor episode we did this week about obtaining leads, about getting leads, definitely check that out. But what I want to talk about today, because when we think about leads, we think about that whole concept of, a hot lead, somebody ready to buy or sell right this moment. That's the only kind of leads we want, right? No, you want all the leads, but you've got to know the difference between the low-hanging fruit and the stuff that's going to take some time. So let's imagine, maybe like some sort of tree here. We've got this little tree, of real estate, and it's got these real estate fruits on it. Some of them way up here at the top, some of them right here. And basically this whole concept of the low-hanging fruit, we're the real estate agent here on the ground. And what a lot of people think, why shoot for this way up here when there's this right here? There's always people that are going to be the low-hanging fruit on the tree, the people that are way down in this process that are basically ready, the prime type of lead there. Hey, they want to buy right now, they need a realtor right now. and it's an easy transaction. But what happens once we take them out of the picture here and we do business with them? They're still part of this tree. They're just way up here. They're basically reincarnated as new fruit at the top, because 5 to 7 years down the road, according to the National Association of Realtors, every 5 to 7 years somebody buys or sells a house. So they're way up here. But as time goes on, they're brought down to the beginning here. And what we have to focus on is making sure that we're building strong relationships, not just for the people that are the low-hanging fruit, but also the leads it is that we're meeting, that we're interacting with, that are looking to buy a house 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road. Because we won't have to worry about always making sure we're finding the low-hanging fruit, because that takes the most time and effort. It takes the most time and effort to seek out this low-hanging fruit. If we could build up a pipeline, and we have this pipeline built out with people looking to buy today. We need people looking to buy today. So that's priority. If you don't have any sort of pipeline, if you don't have any clients right now, priority number one needs to be finding clients today and working through the conversion process with that. And when you have clients that want to buy or sell today, it's pretty easy. You just help them buy or help them sell. And that's ultimately what you're going to do with everyone when they're ready to purchase. But that's not what today's episode is about. Today's episode is about building out this pipeline so the people 6 months, a year down the road, that they didn't forget about you. Because you could probably talk to any real estate professional. I would put money on this, that there's not a single real estate professional out there that had interacted with somebody, and this person they had interacted with knew that they were in real estate, and they had went and used some other real estate professional when they bought their house 6 months, a year down the road. And you know, some people, they're just going to write it off. They're just going to write it off, and they'll say something like, oh, you know, they you know, and I didn't want to waste time. I didn't want to waste time waiting 6 months for them. Oh, well, they forgot about who I was, or a year down the road. Or they'll just complain about them, say, how could they forget I was in real estate? It's our job not only to serve our clients in the moment when they're ready to buy or sell, but also to make sure that they're lined up for us, that they're in our pipeline. And you know, if you have any kind of, you know, well, you know, if I'm good enough, won't they just come to me in the end? No, they won't. They don't know what to look for. They don't know what they're doing. There's another statistic, which I wish I could remember this number, but it's something like 80% of clients will use the first realtor it is that they interact with when they're ready, when they're that low-hanging fruit. So let's say that let's say we're door knocking. Let's say we're out in a neighborhood and we're knocking on doors and we're introducing ourselves to people. Now, ultimately, we're trying to find, especially if we don't have any clients at this given time, we want people that are ready to buy or ready to sell right this second. But that's not going to be everyone. That's when you get lucky, when you find the people that are looking to buy or sell right in this particular moment, that are ready right now. That's where you basically strike gold. But a lot of these people, it's you still got a lot of earth to go through to get to the gold. You've got a lot to mine away at to get to that point. And I would even argue, not even argue, I would say this is a truth. And when you look at this, I don't care who you talk to, I'm sure they would agree with this. The people it is that you have a more established relationship with, that you get into early on, rather than start building that relationship right when they're ready to buy. If you start building a relationship with them 2 years before they're ready to buy, and you maintain that relationship, by the time that they're ready to buy, they're going to be an easier client to work with. You won't have to convince them on your skills and your abilities and what it is that you'll do for them, because that's already been done. That groundwork has already been laid. And if you want to stay in the perpetual state of a new agent or a new business for that matter, of constantly trying to find the food that's going to feed you today, you got to imagine like you've got one of those deep chest freezers, that you've got the deep chest freezer. Now, the stuff you put in the fridge, the stuff you get in the fridge, that's good for a week, maybe 2 weeks for these perishable items. But you take maybe a piece of meat or something and you put that in the freezer, you know that'll be there 6 months from now. a year from now, probably 2 years from now. They probably say don't eat that stuff after it's been that long. But if it's in the deep freezer, you're probably not going to die. Be careful with that stuff. Don't eat that stuff. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is if you're just constantly seeking the clients that are ready to purchase right now, you're constantly having to restock your fridge, rather than just going to the freezer, pulling the stuff out, and now we're warming it up. Now we're thawing it out in the fridge because that food's almost ready to be eaten. And to bring this back to real estate, we have the clients that we're taking care of. By putting that food in the freezer, you're taking care of it. Now it's almost on autopilot, and that's what we have to visualize with our business. How is it that I can maintain this relationship with clients, but do that from a very low workload type of perspective? What is it that I could do for these people that are looking to buy 2 years down the road to ensure that I maintain the relationship, but I'm not taking away from servicing the clients that are ready to buy or sell right now? And you've got to frame this all out to understand what it is that we're trying to achieve here. Because if you don't understand what it is you're trying to achieve with your pipeline, it's going to make it so much more difficult to execute the pipeline if you don't understand the pipeline. So basically, we could kind of look at this another way as well. Let's say that we're kind of looking at this like some sort of funnel. And let's say that, so here's our funnel. And right here, this is where people are primed to come out, and they're ready to purchase within 90 days. They're in the 90-day window. When they're in the 90-day window that they want to be in a house within 90 days, they're ready to buy right now, because if they're using financing, the contract to close is probably going to be about 60 days. About 60 days. Maybe a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit longer, but just going from having a property under contract to closing, that's about 60 days there. If this is a buyer, then 90 days is the window. Now, if this is we'll do buyers on this side, and we'll do sellers on this side. Sellers, I would argue that that's probably within 120 days. So when they're a seller, within 120 days, that's where they're basically ready this moment, because it takes a little bit longer to list and market a property for sale and then get it under contract. It could also be within the 90 days. But this is our low-hanging fruit when they're to this point. But how do we get them to this point? How do we get them to this? Because we could just go find people that are, and if you're buying, Zillow leads or Realtor.com leads or Trulia leads or Homes.com leads or all these sites that sell leads, a lot of times they're in this window. And you might feel like you've got a pretty good system down if you've done a good job at converting these leads it is that you get off sites like this. Now, the problems with these sites are, number one, these leads are much more expensive than pretty much any other type of lead it is that you could generate working with them. And that's just because they're feeding you that low-hanging fruit. But now the other cons of this, other than the cost, because the cost, if you could close one of these deals, doesn't matter if it cost you $1,000 for this lead. If you're able to close them on a $300,000 house at 3% commission, it's almost $10,000 of commission money there for one side of the sale. So that more than pays for even if it costs $1,000 to generate this lead. But with how many leads it takes to get to this low-hanging fruit, because even on sites like Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, all these sites that are selling you for the leads, they're not always in this category. That's probably where, if we're talking about online ways to generate this, where you're most likely to find the people in those categories, because they're the ones that are usually seriously looking, but a lot of times they might be a lot further down the pipeline as well. So if we kind of break this out to some further points. So let's say 6 months. And we'll do 6 months for either side of this here. So we've got 90 days is 3 months. This is 4 months here. When they're within that window, that's where we need to start pulling the trigger. That's where we get a little bit more, where we're putting ourselves really into the full amount of time it is that we want to spend with them. But now 6 months out, if they're not ready to buy or sell within 6 months, and this is probably, I would say, where you're finding quite a few people, you're meeting them, and a lot of times, especially if let's say you're buying leads on one of these sites, you're looking for this here, you're paying attention to this here, and when you get people that are in the 6-month range that are further out, a lot of times they get missed. There end up being a missed opportunity. You pay the same amount for all of these leads, and this could be transcribed for whether these are people on your own website, whether you're door knocking and meeting these people, whether this is just somebody you've maybe met at your kids' soccer games. Any of these cases, I like to use the Zillow and Trulia type of estimates because these are the most expensive leads, and that gives you the most kind of realization of you're spending all this money for one of these leads. But every person it is that you're meeting, if they're buying a $300,000 house, that's almost a $10,000. Imagine that person with a $10,000 price tag on their back. It's kind of a cynical type of way to think about this. But for that $10,000, and this goes back to being aligned with the correct ethics and having the correct moral principles it is. Because if you plan on doing a disservice and not serving these clients to your fullest potential, then yeah, you're a bad person for looking at them with a $10,000 price tag on them. But if you flip that around and you say, how do I earn this $10,000 from this client? What is it that I have to do to be worth $10,000 to them? Because just showing up right before they're ready to buy or sell and listing their property online or showing them houses, that bare minimum, that's not worth what it is that you're getting paid. It's establishing the relationship, building that bond of trust, of education, and really kind of getting them ready and prepared to make this process when they're moving to the actual sale easy. Now, let's say we're meeting somebody that's 1 year out. And I know it sounds kind of arbitrary that we're throwing these dates out here. But we're going to dive into, as we get deeper into the show, and it's almost time for us to take a break, but as we get deeper into the show, I'm going to talk about which activities it is that you want to be doing at which point. Because you don't want to do the same thing for somebody ready to purchase within the next 90 days or ready to sell within the next 120 days as you would for somebody that's a year out from this. If they're a year out, it's entirely, because you could do the same amount, but it's going to be annoying to the clients and it's going to be time wasted on your part if you're doing the same things here and here for the people that are ready now and the people that need some time. You're wasting your time, you're agitating them, they're more likely to get frustrated and mad at you and not even want to use you despite all it is that you're putting in. So you've got to understand not only what it is that you need to do, but what it is that your client needs and how it is that what you're doing is going to be received. The knowledge of all this stuff, knowing this whole process of where they're at in this will really help you better understand your client's needs and be better able to serve those needs. And I want to break this out one more before we go on commercial. We'll say the farthest out, 5 years plus. So we've got the people here within a year, and then we've got the people 5 years plus. And that's why we kind of draw this out as a funnel like this, because this is probably where you're going to find a lot of people. That 5 to 7 year average is just an average. It doesn't mean people will buy in 5 to 7 years. I meet people all the time that have owned a property for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. Maybe this is some property that's been in their family that they grew up in, and they've owned this property for 50 years themselves, and maybe it's been in their family for the past 200 years, and now they're thinking of selling it. These are the people that are going to need the most convincing that you're the right person for the job. And that's really what this whole process looks like of lead conversion. It's convincing them that you're the right person for the job. And then once you actually have them in the sales process, constantly reminding them that you're the right person for the job. And now it's not just as simple as saying, hey, I'm the right person for the job. If you keep it simple like that, they're going to get annoyed with you. It's not that you're telling them that you're the right person for the job, but you're showing them that you're the right person for the job. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to dive into what activities it is that you want to be implementing at these different levels to use your time effectively and have the best response from your clients so they stay in this pipeline. So stick with us. We've got a great show for us still. You're watching State of Real Estate.
Have you seen what's going on in Tampa?
If you're looking to get
get in on the real estate action that's going on in Tampa right now, we're who you need to talk to. We can help you get your real estate license, start your real estate career. We're here to assist you for the life of your real estate career. Give us a call. Phone number is 813-928-0106, or check us out online at tampaschool.com.
Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com.
Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.
You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. I'm John Christman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. Every Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time, we come to you live to mastermind to grow your real estate business. And what we're talking about today is lead conversion, not lead generation. If you're looking for some stuff on lead generation, you want to go to tampaschool.com/success. Just type in lead in that search. The search tool is really powerful on that website. tampaschool.com/success. It's our success center. You'll find all the episodes of State of Real Estate, all the episodes of Ask the Instructor, and there's lots of information for you to kind of just soak up and learn about real estate. Learn how to start your real estate career, how to make your real estate career better. And what we've been talking about this week, we started off Wednesday on Ask the Instructor. We talked about lead generation and all the different ways it is we can lead generate and how to use these methods effectively. Today, we're talking kind of almost part two of this, because just having the lead doesn't get you paid. It's converting that lead, and the conversion aspect means taking that lead to a client, to a closing. Moving them from that process of, hey, I'm interested in buying a house, to, hey, I just bought a house. That's our goal, is to convert them into somebody that bought a house with us or somebody that sold a house with us. And this process, understanding this pipeline and where it is that you're going to be inserting your clients into this process. And you could break this up differently from this. I'm just kind of using this for example purposes here. You can get more granular with this, but if you're not doing anything like this currently, this is what I recommend that you start off with. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time too much talking about the people in this range within the 90 days, within the 120 days for sellers, because that's where you're most involved servicing your clients. This is where you're talking to them directly on the phone. You're talking to them regularly. Because this is right when we're in the window of, hey, if you want to get this done, we're going to probably take about 60 days for the contract, so that leaves us a month to find your home. Or if we're figuring 60 days for the contract over here, we're giving 2 months to get the home sold, which really we should do less time than that. But ultimately, within this range, that's where they've become the low-hanging fruit. As we move further up our pipeline here, basically. So let's talk about when we're within 6 months. Before actually we do that, just to make this kind of clear of how this is going to change and contrast. So phone calls. We talked about phone calls. And now all the numbers that I'm going to be giving you here are at least once a week. At least once a week. We're calling them on the phone. We're speaking to them on the phone. They're calling us, or we're calling them at least. As we get even closer than this, we're maybe talking to them multiple times a week. One time a week might not be enough, but that is the bare minimum when they're within 90 days as a buyer or within 120 days as a seller. But then what else is it that we're doing on top of this? Emails. Emails at least daily. At least daily. And how do you get any more often than daily? You send multiple emails a day sometimes. Within this period, these are the low-hanging fruit. And these daily emails, if you're dealing with a buyer, this might be properties that are hitting the market. Might be properties that are hitting the market. Maybe it is, I don't know. This is really the in-depth stuff. As we get deeper into this, we'll have more stuff it is that we could email them. This is maybe more personalized emails as well. As, hey, what would be a good time this week for us to meet to go look at some properties? What would be a good time for us to talk about getting your home sold? But at least daily, because these are the ways it is that you have these more kind of subliminal reminders. The phone calls, these are the more direct. And in person, I would say at least 2 times a week that we're meeting them in person. If they are this low-hanging fruit. I know that's kind of cut off there at the bottom. But at least twice a week, we're meeting them in person. So we've got a lot of touches going on here. We've got daily emails, and we could say emails or text. Maybe we text, again, I would say, we'll say every other day. That's at least, and look, you've got to gauge. This is where you have your most personalized interactions when they're right here needing the immediate service. But let's dive up further now, because that's necessarily what I want to make this show about, because everyone knows when they're ready now, you've got to stay on top of them so they know that you're doing everything it is that you can for them. Maybe it's with the seller. If we're dealing with a seller, we're maybe sending them reports and feedback on showings. Maybe and if we don't have showings, then we're talking about what it is we're doing to get showings. Open houses if we're dealing with sellers. But you want to have daily communication when they're within this window, especially when you're servicing them as a client. But now, do we want that same level of, we'll just call it aggressiveness, because that's really it. Now, if they're your client, if they're already signed with you and they're your client, because that's really where we want them to be when they're within this point. Once they pass this threshold, that's where they should be our client now, that they've signed paperwork, they've signed a listing agreement with us, they've signed a buyer brokerage agreement with us. And this is where they want us to be aggressive. We're aggressive in servicing our client. That's the good kind of aggressive. Now, do we want to take that same aggressiveness in here for 6 months out where they're not quite ready yet? Now, as we move closer towards this point, that's where we're easing, because this is not completely segmented. This is not where, okay, this is what we're doing here. Now we hit 89 days and all of a sudden we change and we're a completely different person. No, we're transitioning through these different levels to get down. And as we get closer to them, okay, they're ready, they're almost ready to sign paperwork. That's where we're transitioning into this much more often communication. But when we're at, let's say this 6 month period, what is it that we're doing? So we're still emailing. And look, you can adjust these to your business, but what I'd recommend is, if you're not doing anything like this already, try using these recommendations and then adjust from there. But emailing, when they're 6 months out, I would say every other day. Every other day, and we're going to be transitioning to at least daily as we go further down. If we're talking about phone calls, over here we're talking about once a week. Here we might deal, we'll say at least once a month. And I'm hesitant to say just once a month. And the key thing I want to reiterate is, as we progress further towards them being ready, that's where we're going to increase the frequency. We increase the frequency because, again, this is not a segmented system. This is, okay, at 6 months, when they're 6 months out, that's where we're maybe every other day we're sending an email. Once a month or so at least we're calling them. But as we get closer, now we're 4 months out, 3 months out, 2 months out. That's as we get closer to this, that's where we're ramping this up. But we're contacting them once a month, maybe once every other week, and then maybe once a week. And now we're moving into this point now where we're servicing a client. And we've got to judge them. We've got to constantly readjust this. Just because we contacted them 6 months ago and they said, yeah, probably 6, they don't know when it is that they really want to buy unless they do have some particular deadline. Hey, I'm starting this next job. I've already got this lined up. I've signed the paperwork. I'm starting this job 8 months from now and I need a house before those 8 months. That's a pretty definite deadline. But when it's people that are just looking to move into a larger house, to downsize into a smaller house, maybe they're moving locations, whatever the case may be, that's where you've got to constantly kind of readjust this and tweak this and reassess this. All right, well, where are they at in this process? And let's say we're going further down to this. Let's say that they're 1 year to 6 months. 1 year to 6 months out. These are far out. Let's talk about email frequency. So when they're in this low-hanging fruit area, when we're basically servicing them, we're emailing them daily. Out to about 6 months, about every other day. So every other day, if let's say the week 7 days, and I don't know, let's say 4 times a week. About 4 times a week it is that we're emailing them here. We'll say for the every other day, 4 times a week. But now when they're further out, when they're 1 year out, do we want to email them 4 times a week? It's probably not going to hurt. I don't know, maybe we bump that down to 2 to 3 times a week. 2 to 3 times a week. And you might think, wow, that's a lot of emails. But most people don't read every single email it is that they've got. Matter of fact, let me take a look at my email right now. So just to give you an idea of what's going on with me, I've got 44,123 unread emails. And a lot of these emails, I saw the subject, just had no interest in opening them. But just think of what that means for your clients. And yes, you've got those people that are obsessive, that they open every single email and they mark it as read. I used to be like that. But then I just started getting more and more emails, and now I'm all the way up to 44,000 unread emails. And I'm not alone with that. That's not unique to me. You probably have a lot of unread emails, and if you don't, you're that unique type of person that reads every single email. And a lot of this none of this stuff supersedes. These are just generalizations, but none of this stuff will supersede this personal touch. And I want to dive deeper into particularly the emails as well as the phone calls as we progress further into the show here, and what it is that you could be sending them as far as these emails are. But before we do that, let's just talk kind of about the frequency when they're the people that are from 1 year to 5 years plus. Basically, anybody looking to purchase a property in over a year. That they're not ready, they don't want to do it within the next year, but maybe next year or the following year or something. They're much further out at this point. And at the very least, well, let's say 1 to 2 times a week. If they've expressed interest with you, that they're interested in purchasing property. If I've had people on MLS auto emails that I know are not serious, but they want to look, they like looking, and they've been in MLS auto emails for years. And I'm not talking about, every once in a while because it's such specific criteria that they get an email. I'm talking about they're getting emails daily, and they're opening these emails daily. And these might be people that are having issues with their credit and working on credit, or they don't have the appropriate amount of income, or maybe they're just not, whatever the process may be, or the reason why that they're not ready to purchase right now. Look, we could maybe try to convince them, hey, you should buy a house. We could try that, and maybe some of our emails that we're sending out, the 1 to 2 a week, we've got some stuff about getting your property ready for sale, some advantages available for home ownership, a update on the market, all kinds of things. I want to talk about the different things it is that we could be utilizing in these emails, but let's not forget about the phone calls. So over here, we're talking about, maybe once a month. Over here, for within 1 year, I would say, we'll say every other month. So every other month within their 1 year. And as we get closer to 6 months, that's where, we start ramping this up to, okay, maybe we're calling them once a month. We're staying in touch. We're touching base. And then as we move closer here, we're moving towards calling them about at least once a week. And once they're their client, you might be talking on their phone with them daily. So these are almost just some basic guidelines, some minimums, I would say. But when the situation is appropriate, definitely ramp up your efforts. And let's say, well, what if they're further out than 1 year? Do we still want to call them? Absolutely. Not as frequently, and we'll say for 1 year plus, once a quarter. Once a quarter when they're over 1 year out from their deadlines, buyer or seller. When they're in 1 year, phone calls about every other month. Because again, we're trying to establish a relationship. And you might say, okay, well, when they're 1 year out, when they're looking at buying property in over a year, won't they get annoyed by me calling them once a quarter? Well, how many quarters do we have in a year? We have 4 quarters in a year. So you're talking about calling somebody 4 times a year. Not like the daily calls that you're getting from whoever, whatever telemarketer is calling your phone and ringing it nonstop every single day. But, staying in touch with them once a quarter. Maybe even more often than that. Again, these are minimum numbers that I don't recommend you do anything less than once a quarter when they're over a year out. And the reason why these are just minimums is you don't know if they might say they want to buy maybe next year. But are they just saying they want to buy next year, or do they need to buy sooner than that? Is there some reason why they should buy sooner than that? Maybe it has to do with mortgage interest. Maybe it has to do with the value of their property right now that they're looking to sell and trade up into a new property. Whatever the case may be, this is why we want to have this communication with them. And one thing it is that we've kind of left out further down here is the text messages. And text messages can be more frequent than phone calls. Over here we said phone calls once a week at a minimum, where text messages every other day. And for within 6 months rather than phone calls once a month, I would say text weekly. Because the text is less intrusive and it's more effective than email. It's kind of a hybrid of the phone call and the email, the text message. You can't say as much as you can in an email, but it doesn't have that intrusiveness that calling somebody and needing them to talk to you and communicate back and forth and interrupting their day. The text messages are great because you could reach out to them. You could say whatever it is that you're needing to say in this text message, and I want to talk about some of these things it is that we're going to be doing in each one of these different categories as we move them through this process. But if we're texting them, they can respond, they could not respond, but it's not necessarily that big of a deal. Now, if you're finding yourself that you're texting them and you sent them 2 or 3 text messages and they haven't responded, a lot of agents will say, oh, well, they're not responding to my text messages, they must not be interested. Now, I would pick up the phone. Maybe they don't know how to text, maybe they don't like it. Believe it or not, in 2018, there's still people that either don't know how to text or don't like to text, and they'd much rather talk on the phone. So that's where you want to pick up the call and say, hey, yeah, I sent you some text messages, and I just wanted to, I didn't see any response. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't trying to send me something and didn't go through, or if maybe you're not quite ready yet to pull the trigger on this. Because we have this communication, so we know where they are at truly in the process. Maybe they said they're looking to buy within 6 months, but they really meant a year. And if you're doing the things here for somebody that's here, that's where they start to get annoyed. So this is a constant process of readjusting and realigning people based on your probing and finding out where they're at in this process. But what this assures is these people that are far out here, as they move closer to here, they're remembering you. They have the relationship with you. They're not contacting other real estate professionals, which they shouldn't be. If you just expect to talk to somebody when they're here, and then a year later when they're ready to buy or ready to sell, to just remember that conversation they had with you wherever, they're not. It's our job to reinforce and fortify that relationship it is that we're establishing with our clients. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back. I want to dive into next what it is that we're going to put in these emails, because sending even 1 to 2 emails a week, that's a lot of information to send. So how do we make this information, and what do we talk about when we're calling them on the phone, or what do we text them about to make this most effective? So stick with us. We've got a great show for you still. I'm John Christmas. You're watching State of Real Estate.
Have you seen what's going on in Tampa?
you're looking to get in on the real estate action that's going on in Tampa right now, we're who you need to talk to. We can help you get your real estate license, start your real estate career. We're here to assist you for the life of your real estate career. Give us a call. Phone number is 813-928-0106, or check us out online at tampaschool.com.
Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com.
Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.
You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. I'm John Crismo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. What we do every Friday is come to you live to mastermind, to grow your real estate business, take it to that next level, even if this means taking it from nothing to something, or from something to something better, from something better to something great. This is all about transitioning, making yourself uncomfortable. You know, when anything feels uncomfortable, when you're getting out of your comfort zone, especially when it comes down to maybe trying to learn, maybe you're new to real estate and you're just trying to learn about, what's a pipeline, what's a sales pipeline, and that will be a little bit uncomfortable trying to wrap your mind around this. But once you know the sales pipeline, you could utilize this concept to make sure you have a constant flow of business. But that learning process will be uncomfortable. Maybe you don't reach out to your clients. Maybe you already have the idea of the pipeline, but you're telling yourself, you're like, man, I really don't do that good of a job staying in touch with these people that are further out. Maybe you do a great job closing deals, but you're getting burned out by constantly looking for that low-hanging fruit. And you're asking yourself, well, how can I make this so I don't have to be constantly looking for the people ready to buy or sell today? How can I have people that are buying or selling today, then some people within 6 months, some people within a year, and some people that are even farther out? How do I make sure that they're lining up to do business with me? That's what the pipeline is all about, and it's our communication with them. And that's what I want to kind of focus on for this next segment of the show here is, okay, now what do we do? What kind of communications can we have with these people at these different segments? So we'll do two columns here because you're going to want to have different communications for buyers and sellers. And the email aspect of this, when we were talking about the frequency here of emails, email frequency was the highest, phone frequency was the lowest, text frequency kind of in the middle there, and there's so many other ways it is that we're staying in touch with them. If you're doing any sort of direct mail campaigns, you want to have these people on your list for their direct mail campaigns. Maybe you're doing Facebook advertising. You want to have these people in your Facebook customer list for your Facebook advertisements so that they're seeing your Facebook advertisements, that you have all these different mediums and different channels. There's so many ways to get creative with this, but I want to start with just the basics here of the emails, phone calls, and text messages. These are three things that you cannot go without when you're trying to follow up with, and I did not use the Freck interpretation of that word, but the sales interpretation of that word, follow up with people until they're ready to buy or sell. So let's break this up two columns here. So we've got the buyer and the seller, because again, different communications based on whether they're a buyer or a seller. And can you make that shot just a tad bit wider so they could see that? So for the buyer, yeah, that looks good there. Let's start this off with when they're the 1 year plus. So when they're 1 year plus out, and same thing for the seller, 1 year plus out. So one of the things it is that you should be emailing at least monthly is a market report. And as we get closer, as we funnel them down to when they're ready to go right now, we're not dropping these things off. We're continuing to do them. We're adding to that. And that's how you build upon this. But start off at the very least with what a lot of agents, they'll stop right here. They'll maybe have some sort of market report email it is that they do, but that's all they do. That's the people that are super long-term that are just kind of curious as to, okay, if they're looking to buy, what area is it that they're looking to buy in? So the area it is that they're looking to buy or sell. And that's the same thing we want over here on the seller side. We also want to send them market reports. So this is something you could send to everyone. And if you're using email automation software, which you need to be using rather than just trying to send these emails manually, you could sign up for something like MailChimp. MailChimp is a great platform, and you can get started with that for free. They used to make you have to pay for automations, but now I believe as long as you have less than 2,000 people in your database, it's completely free of charge for all the features that MailChimp offers. So definitely check that one out. I don't get any endorsement or anything like that by you checking them out. I've just have used their services before, still use their services for certain aspects of different businesses today. So definitely check them out. It works really well if you're not doing any email automation already. But have something. That's just one suggestion. There's plenty out there. And MailChimp isn't necessarily better than others. It's just free, which is a great place to start. But you want to get to the point where you're paying for these services. Because when you're paying for them, that tells you that you've got enough contacts in there where this is costing money. And when you're paying for something, you're going to usually utilize it a little bit more effectively rather than something it is that you just have for free. But you get started for free with that, which is great. So you have a market report for the area that they're looking to sell in or the area it is that they're looking to buy in. Non-negotiable, you need to be doing this for everyone at least once a month. But what else is it that we could send them? Now, when they're 1 year out, they're not too serious about buying or selling. But what else can we send them? We could still send them, maybe some sort of newsletter. Both sides. And this is something, buyer or seller, and this could be the same generic one, and the email automation software makes it so much where you can kind of segment this down and get into this. But look, even if you've got just some generic newsletter to make sure that you're reinforcing your name, that will absolutely be good. So just a newsletter, and you want to make these things maybe something that's going on, something that's happening, and it doesn't necessarily have to be specific to the particular neighborhood it is that they're looking for. It's better if it is. Let's say that the person is looking to buy a property in Wesley Chapel. If you could have specific news about Wesley Chapel or something like that, there's a lot of ways to kind of automate this. Don't get too hung up on making it perfect. Start out with something clunky and refine it. Start out with something super basic, because even if they're looking for properties in Wesley Chapel, they might be interested in what's going on in South Tampa or downtown Tampa or St. Petersburg or all of these big events, maybe some sort of concert or just something, the kind of BS type of stuff that people, they might be interested in. Little things like that, just kind of little tidbits. And that's just one way it is that we're kind of getting into their inbox and constantly that they're seeing us, even if they're not opening these emails, because you'll be surprised by how low some of these open rates are. And that's what's great about these email automation softwares is they'll track how many people actually open your email messages. And you might be surprised when you find 10%, 5%, 1% maybe even opened your message. And even if, now granted, you always want to try to drive that number higher, but even at 1%, where only 1% of them are opening, if they're staying subscribed to your email list, that's telling you that, hey, look, they're just not opening and reading your messages, but they're probably at least seeing your name, and that's refreshing the memory of who it is that you are and making sure that they don't forget about you, which is ultimately what it is that you're trying to achieve. So newsletter is a great thing, even if they're not interested in what's in the newsletter. And that's like why I said you don't want to get too hung up on trying to make these perfect, because a lot of times they're not even going to open up a lot of these emails until they start to get more serious. The market reports, though, when they're personalized, that might be something and you could track these things to see the people, okay, who are the people that are opening these market reports the most? That's telling you that these are hotter leads. These are people that are more interested in what's going on in their particular market. Some of the other things it is that we could do, success stories. These are always great to send out. Now, you want to be careful with something like this because the success stories are definitely a kind of sales tactic, saying, hey, look, I help these people sell their house. How about you? Even if you're not directly having that call to action, sending them a success story, they don't need to read that to know you're sending them a success story because you want to make them a success story. Not necessarily a bad thing, but don't be too aggressive with these, especially when they're in the further out stages. Now, as you move them closer and further down this pipeline, that's where, you start to talk about these things a little bit more. You start to send them maybe more success stories. And again, you could segment these lists and so on and so forth to really kind of automate this stuff as well. And then let's say for the phone calls. What is it that we're talking to them on the phone about? Well, maybe it is about the market report. Maybe we're saying, hey, did you see that market report that I had sent you? Did you look over some of those market reports? Yeah, no, I just wanted to give you a personal call, just real quick. Do you have 5 minutes to talk? Or, we talk about the text messages. The texts are more infrequent. Maybe something like, hey, I just saw something crazy when I was reviewing the market reports in your neighborhood. Do you have a couple minutes to talk? Something crazy in the neighborhood? Well, yeah. Well, I'm at work now, but call me at 5:30. Okay, yeah, I'll call you at 5:30. And now, normally, if you just call somebody randomly out of the blue, they're probably not going to answer. But when they could get a preview, a snippet of what this conversation is about, they're maybe more likely to say, yeah, call me at this time, and actually answer the phone when you do call them at that time. And maybe you follow up, hey, getting ready to call you, finishing up with somebody now, getting ready to call you in about 5 minutes. And that way they're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm supposed to be talking to them on the phone. And maybe that's one thing you're talking about. Maybe you're talking about the market report. And this is a good way to feel them out, to see how serious it is that they are, because that's what you're constantly trying to do. You're feeling them out, you're making some guesses, and then now you're reconfirming that. Now, if this is somebody that says, oh yeah, something crazy in the market reports, I'm definitely interested in that. And you say, hey, how you doing? How's the kids? How's the dog? How's the cat? How's the pet snake? And just these little kind of things to show you're a person, that you know who it is that these people are. And now a great tool that you absolutely need to have to keep track of this information is a CRM. A CRM will allow you to notate conversations it is that you have with people. So that way it kind of helps jog your memory. Has kids that are 10 years old that play soccer. Something like that in there, oh yeah, how's the kids' soccer going? And people, when they realize that you remember that through the help of your technology, they'll be, wow, they remember, they know who I am as a person. And this is important when you're working the long term. When you're playing the long game, that's important. Now look, you don't need to bring up their kids' soccer when you're trying to service them as a client. You're wasting your time and theirs. It sounds rough, but you've got more important things to talk about when you're further down, when you're now servicing the client, when you're trying to help them buy or sell their house. You're essentially wasting your time, their time and yours, because you have more important things to talk about. You have more important things to do. You shouldn't have time to talk about their kids and whatnot when you're a busy real estate professional, when you're trying to get the highest price for the house that they're selling or get the lowest price it is for their buying. If that comes up as a topic, that's fine. But you don't need to be instigating those types of conversations. But when they're further out, it's a good way to kind of just touch base and say, hey, yeah, I'm a person too. Maybe you have kids and they have kids. Look at that, something in common. Maybe they have a dog and you have a dog. Look at that, something in common. And going back to the emails, if you've got any sort of special, what should we call this here? Like a special type of, we'll say like a hobby or something like that. Maybe you're a cook. Maybe you like to cook. And so maybe you're sending out recipes. And you're like, well, John, what do recipes have to do with real estate? They don't. But they have to do with establishing a relationship with people. And people might open your emails just for your recipes. But if you're the realtor chef, yeah, they're gonna pay attention to you when you're talking about recipes, but then when they need a realtor, like, oh, I've got my realtor chef. He's a chef and a realtor. And when you have these little niches of these little hobbies and whatnot, these are good things to kind of leverage, because especially when you find other people that like to cook or whatever the case may be, you have that connection. And those connections are what help make you have long-term clients for the long run, where you don't have to just be focused on, hey, I need to sell you a house now. But you're actually a person. You're building a relationship with them. And you're not done with them once the sale is over. You're following up with them, and now they're in the process all over again. And you're going through this again. And you know that in 5 to 7 years, according to the National Association of Realtor statistics, they're probably going to want to sell their home and buy another. Even if they're moving out of state or to another country or whatever that may be, you could help them with the sale of their home as well as earn a referral fee for whoever it is that you refer them to in that state, in that country, in that other city, whatever the case may be. And when you're following up with people, again, they're in the same boat. You're sending them market reports of their neighborhood, maybe just once a month, maybe the occasional success story, a newsletter, maybe you've got something special like, oh, this is my recipe of the week. And there's so many ways. I mean, we could spend hours upon hours upon hours going through setting this up and structuring this all out. But look, it doesn't have to be perfect. When you've got 10,000 people that you've got in your database, that's where, okay, we could refine this a little bit to make sure it's most effective. But if you've got 100 people it is that you've got their email and you're wanting to put it in here and follow up with them, you don't have to be too specific. Because with 100 people, if they're only opening 10% of your emails, for every 100 emails, every time you send an email, you're only reaching 10 people. So that's what you got to keep in mind, and that's why this frequency is important. But let's change gears because we're running out of time for today. And what I want to talk about now is, okay, let's say we're getting closer. Now we're 6 months out. We're still doing all of this, but now we're maybe using these devices, the phones and the emails, a little bit more. Maybe we start to send them not just market reports, but maybe some of these MLS auto emails. And you want to be careful with these because if they're not ready for something like this, a lot of people aren't going to like getting emails constantly over and over and over again. They might, but maybe they go on that crusade that they're trying to clean out their inbox and get rid of all these emails it is that they're getting. These are usually the first ones to go if they're not ready. So as they start to get more ready, hey, why don't I set up a search so you could start seeing some of the properties that are available in the area that you're looking for, so you could see every time a new property is listed in your neighborhood. And you want to refine this so you have a very tight criteria so it's not sending these people email like crazy and driving them away, because that's the balance it is that you've got to play here. As they get closer to being an actual client, as you're moving them further down the pipeline, that's where the things it is that you're doing are ramping up, where it is that you're doing more. But further out, just little occasional touches is what it is that we want. So for phone calls, text messages maybe, hey, I wanted to talk to you about some of the sales that occurred in your neighborhood. When do you have a minute to talk? Oh, no, we're not ready to buy yet. Well, when was it that you're thinking you guys are ready? And we've talked about this before. Don't assume, ask. We're asking them, hey, well, when is it that they're ready? So we're confirming that with them. Oh, yeah, something came up and we're pushing this further out. We're not going to be able to buy for a while. We're not going to be able to sell for a while. Oh, sorry to hear about that, but I completely understand. Did you have any questions? I still want to kind of go over some of these things with you. So just sound ways to still have that conversation is now a good time to talk. Just something like that where you could kind of get on the phone with them, feel them out a little bit, have that two-way of communication. Hey, look, no, I understand, no pressure. I just wanted to check in with you guys, see how you're doing. Just make sure that I was doing everything you want me to do here. Look, is there anything else that is that you want to look at some stuff just so you could kind of get an idea of what it is you need to plan to save up for, or what it is that you need to do with your credit, or whatever that case may be, just so we could kind of continue to foster that relationship. So, and again, this is a constant process. Okay, maybe moving them further back in the pipeline, maybe moving them up in the pipeline if things change and they're ready to get going right now. But you want to be utilizing all these different methods, and not just this. We only talked about really the three essentials: phone, text messages, and emails. Phone, text messages, and emails. Now, you don't want to rely on just one of these because they might not answer your calls. They might not like texting, or maybe they don't like reading emails. So you want to use all three of these, and that way you're around them constantly without being aggressive. Because if you're only relying on the phone, if we were trying to call them as much as we would send them emails, we would quickly get in trouble with do not call list and things like that for calling them as much as we would send them emails. Or same thing with text messages even. You know, that somebody could have a back and forth with text messages. It only takes a couple seconds out of their day for each one. But a phone call, that's maybe a 5-minute ordeal. So we want to utilize these different methods correctly in order to make sure that we're following up effectively. So emails, this is for your kind of just general information. Remember, the key point with any one of these, the key for any of these, especially when they're 1 year out or 6 months out or 90 days out, is to just make an impression, to just give them a little bit of a reminder of who you are and what it is that you do. Maybe educating them a little bit in the process. As we move further and closer towards this here, maybe the MLS auto emails, maybe some how-to guides, maybe a must-read tips about, and these are all things geared toward property sales, things you need to know before you sell your house, things you need to know before you buy your house, that type of information. And you're sending them that type of stuff as they move closer down this pipeline. This isn't going to be that effective if they're a year out, but as they become 6 months out, as they become 90 days out, this is stuff it is that they're going to look at and read and want to learn about. And if we do direct mail, we're going to want them in those lists. If we do any sort of advertising, we're going to want them in those lists. We want to make sure that they're seeing us on all fronts so that we're saturating the market around them. If we just rely on one medium to accomplish this, they're going to get quickly sick of all the phone calls or calling them to say, hey, Dylan, I got a market report for you. Do you want me to drop that off? Hey, I've got a newsletter for you. Hey, do you want to hear my recipe of the week? No, you wouldn't call for those things, so you've got to use the appropriate medium. And it's really the combination of all these together, because they might not read your emails, they might not like texting, they might not answer your phone calls. So we don't want to rely on just one. Maybe they won't answer your calls, they don't like to text, and they also don't like to email. Well, that's why we have direct mail as well. That's why we have Facebook advertising and Google pay-per-click advertising and so on and so forth. And look, the sad truth of this is not every person it is that we build a relationship with will end up transacting with us. Now, that is a little bit of a problem when they're not, and what can we do to fix that? But we won't be 100% with every person it is. That's our goal. Our ideal universe is every person it is that we interact with, we end up buying or selling real estate on their behalf. But when that doesn't happen, and that's why you can't rely on just one client or 2 clients or 3 clients. You want to have a pipeline of thousands of people it is that you've interacted with, and you're constantly kind of pruning this and managing these people and moving them around, using automated systems like email, sending the occasional text messages, giving the occasional phone call, sending the occasional mailing, having them on your advertising list or whatever that may be, to build that relationship and show that, hey, you're the real estate professional it is that they need to deal with. We're about out of time for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for liking and sharing the show. If we could have more time to talk about this, we might do a follow-up episode to one of these before. If you missed any part of this, go to tampaschool.com/success. That's tampaschool.com/success. You'll find the full recording of today's episode. You'll see last Wednesdays, this actually just the other day, Wednesdays, episode of lead generation. So if you're wondering how it is that you get these leads in the first place, check out that Wednesday. We've got so many topics in there to help you understand real estate and grow your real estate business. Again, that link is tampaschool.com/success. You can drop your email in there, and whenever it is that we go live with one of these live streams, you'll get notified. Like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and if you're looking at starting a real estate career, maybe you've got to do post-licensing, maybe you need continuing education, give us a call. Our phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. We have advisors standing by to answer any questions it is that you have or assist you in any way it is that they can. So again, that phone number is 813-928-0106. Check us out online as well, tampaschool.com. Be sure to visit the Success Center. But that's about all the time it is we've got for today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week.
Have you seen what's going on in Tampa?
If you're looking to get in on the real
real estate action that's going on in Tampa right now, we're who you need to talk to. We can help you get your real estate license, start your real estate career. We're here to assist you for the life of your real estate career. Give us a call. Phone number is 813-928-0106, or check us out online at tampaschool.com.
Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com.
Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.
You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate.